Greetings gamers, I'm Anto, and we've got new information on the May release for the new D&D book, which is going to be Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So some of you may have known, a new Amazon page was created for the May release of the new D&D book, which we now know is going to be called Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Jumping over onto the Amazon page, you can see here that we've got the Guide to Ravenloft Dungeons and Dragons hardcover coming on May the 18th, 2021. So it says here, explore the horrors of Ravenloft in this campaign source book for the world's greatest role-playing game. Now, I knew that there was going to be a book coming in May. I predicted that it would be a source book of some kind because we will have just had an adventure book in Candlekeep, and then before that we had a kind of rules and mechanics book in Tasha's, so I thought it would be a setting guide. I didn't think it was going to be Ravenloft though. I was pretty sure it was going to be something else. I thought we were going to get this Ravenloft book later in the year, closer to fall, tie into the Halloween season, but I was wrong. We're getting it in May. So it says here, terror stalks the nightmare realms of Ravenloft. No one knows that better than the monster scholar Rudolph Van Richten. To arm the new generation against the creatures of the night, Van Richten has compiled his correspondence and case files into this tome of eerie tales and chilling truths. There's a couple of interesting things about this. One of the most interesting things is they really seem to be leaning into this, presenting a book from the point of view of a single character. So we've had Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Mordenkainen's Tome of Both, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and now we get Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. I think that they're leaning into that point of view of having this guiding character who has a point of view and takes the reader through start to finish, kind of giving them some perspective on the mechanical content. In terms of mechanical content, it says travel, perhaps even by choice, to Ravenloft's expanded domains of dread, each domain with its own unique flavour of horror, thrilling story hooks, and grisly cast of characters. Craft your own D&D horror settings, add tension with optional rules, and get advice for running a game that's ghastly in all the right ways. Create characters with lineages tied to vampires, undead, and hags, horror-themed subclasses, the investigator background, and dark gifts that may be a double-edged sword. Unleash nightmarish monsters from expanded bestiary and browse a collection of mysterious trinkets, and then explore Ravenloft in the included Dungeons and Dragons adventure, play as a standalone adventure, or drop it into your current game for a bit of sinister fun. If we go down here, it doesn't have a page count yet, but we have no more information. But that's a lot of information to go on. So a few things stand out to me straight away. First, craft your own D&D horror setting. So it's explicitly giving you this reason why you want to buy this book, even if you don't care about Ravenloft. So that's something I think that they have been trying to do a lot more recently with their source books, is say, here are some reasons that you would want to use this book, even if you're not playing in this setting. So in the Mythic Odysseys of Theros book, they included a lot of kind of Pantheon stuff in that I think was really useful, even if you weren't playing in a Theros setting. And it seems like in this, they're going to be doing that with kind of horror themes and showing you how to play horror in D&D, even if you're not running a Ravenloft game. And then we get the bit about creating characters with lineages tied to vampires, undead, and hags. That's those unearthed arcana lineages that we got at the start of the year. I am surprised that they're making it into a product so soon. I really thought that they were going to be for a product at the end of the year. I don't even know whether the playtest period for them has closed yet. So it's interesting that so soon to their first release in Unearthed Arcana, we're getting them in a book. I have kind of mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, it means that the content still feels fresher, which is a big problem I had with Tasha's, was that I'd seen almost all the content in that book in Unearthed Arcana over the years anyway, so it didn't feel new. Whereas these lineages, the Unearthed Arcana was close enough to the release that it should still feel new, which is pretty cool. But I wonder how much the playtest will have impacted on the final product with it being so close together. And then we get the investigator background. I'm interested to see what kind of proficiencies that background gives you. I really enjoy backgrounds. I've got a whole video on them, and I'm really interested to see how much they lean into kind of some of the pulp noir tropes that I would expect from an investigator background. And then there's the Dark Gifts. Now, Dark Gifts are something that appeared in Curse of Strahd. If you're playing Curse of Strahd, these are spoilers, so look away now. But in the Amber Temple in Curse of Strahd, you can be bestowed a number of Dark Gifts. Now, most of these are spells, or a lot of these are spells, such as Contagion, Lightning Bolt, Raise Dead. I suspect that what we're going to get from this is really similar to the supernatural gifts that we got in the Mythic Odysseys of Theros, which is very similar to either a spell or a feat. So I think that's going to be another way you can kind of reward your players, which is something I'm here for. I really enjoy that aspect of rewarding your players, not just with magic items, but also with abilities and supernatural gifts, and now dark gifts. Then we've got Unleash Nightmarish Monsters from the expanded bestiary. I'm really excited to see what kind of horror monsters they throw into this, because running horror monsters is one of my favorite things to do as a DM. I love throwing really creepy, scary, grisly monsters at my players and kind of seeing them freak out. So I'm excited to see what they put in. And then we've got the section saying to explore Ravenloft in the included adventure. Now, this is something I was kind of expecting. I know that Mythic Odysseys of Theros gave the No Silent Secret adventure, which took you on kind of a tour of some of the parts of Theros. Now, I imagine that this adventure is going to kind of take you on a tour of Ravenloft and the mechanics in this book. You'll probably encounter some of the creatures that are included in the book, get some of the items or the dark gifts that are included, and it'll kind of introduce the players into some of the content in this book, even if you don't necessarily run in Ravenloft. In terms of other things that we're going to get in terms of player content, we're getting horror themed subclasses. Now, I assume it will follow the standard kind of set in books like Mythic Odysseys of Theros, where we get 2 new subclasses, and I would imagine that those are going to be the subclasses from Unearthed Arcana Part 4 at the end of 2020, which is the College of Spirits Bard and the Undead Patron Warlock. Both of these have got a really strong horror element to them with spirits and the undead, and they would both fit really well into a Ravenloft style setting. So I imagine those are going to be the 2 we'll see. If it's like it was in Theros, those will be the only 2 we'll see, and then we'll see them included in a new kind of compendium book later down the line. But maybe we'll get something that we're not expecting as well. One of the things I'm actually looking forward to the most about this is reading Van Richten's notes. So Van Richten is the Van Helsing of the Ravenloft setting. He is a monster hunter, he's a scholar, he very much fills that Van Helsing archetype in kind of the Dracula side of Ravenloft. And it's going to be interesting to see to what degree they take that, whether it's just a few notes sprinkled here and there in the book, or whether it's going to be presented much more like he is given his kind of case study for surviving Ravenloft. I also think it's going to be really cool to get some information on how you can travel to Ravenloft. So for those of you that aren't aware, Ravenloft is also known as the Domain of Dread. It's part of the Great Wheel cosmology. It is its own demi-plane, and it seems like this book is going to give us options to travel there by choice, which is something really cool. And one of the things that I enjoy most about D&D is that kind of planes hopping nature of the game, how you can have characters that can just go to an entirely different setting. You can have a full campaign there, and then you can just jump over to a different setting with the same characters, and it doesn't kind of break the internal logic of the game. So I'm excited to see how they expand on that. So I'm really excited to see how they expand on that. The Domain of Dread is kind of a corner of the Shadowfell, and there's all sorts of gribbly beasties that we might find there. I am really excited for this book. I am surprised that we're getting it so early in the year. I really thought we were going to get it in the fall to kind of tie in with Halloween, but I'm excited for it. Ravenloft and Strahd are kind of some of my favorite settings in D&D. Strahd is one of the few campaigns I consider running that's not homebrew material, so I am excited to take some of the flavor from that setting and be able to work it into my own game. And if they're expanding the Domain of Dread, being able to just wholesale pick that up and move it into my own game. As always, there will be a review and kind of a first impressions of the book the day after release, probably, because it releases on my 30th birthday, so I'm not going to do it on that day. But if you want to see that and you want to see my review and overview of Candlekeep, make sure to subscribe. And until next time, happy gaming.